Welcome to the Slow Smoked Pigskin podcast. I'm Darren.
And I mean Drew. And this is
our podcast.
What are you doing? You're not Aaron.
You're not Drew.
I think we should go.
That was weird, right?
Yeah, it was.
Anyways, I'm Aaron,
I'm Drew.
and this is our podcast.
Subscribe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of the Slow Smoke Pigskin podcast. That's Drew.
Hello.
He's repping Mammoth, I think that says right
Mammoth.
there.
It snowed there the other day.
Seriously? Already?
Yeah. First time in 22 years it snowed in Mammoth. But it was a dusting
In
and it
August,
didn't
you
stick.
mean?
What did I just say?
You said it was the first time in 22 years it snowed in Mammoth.
For August. Yes.
I was like,
I'm glad you know what's going on in my brain.
it's a scary place. It's very sad that I understand it.
Yeah,
Oh, what does that say about mine? Okay. All right. League news. Nothing going on right now. I don't even know if there's been a waiver pickup or anything lately.
I think people are trying to trim versus pick people up.
Yeah, we're going to have to get there pretty soon. NFL news. Jaylen Warren is out multiple weeks with a hamstring injury. It's questionable if he'll be ready for the start of the season. While he's out, that's good news, I guess, for Najee. But the Steelers still haven't picked a starting quarterback. And last I heard, Tomlin says it may be to like.
I thought Russ was the starter. I thought he was one.
He's been getting the first shot, but they haven't officially named him the starter. But, go ahead.
I saw I came across something, and I have trouble believing everything I see on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. But there was some stat that like he had 26 touchdowns last year before he stopped playing, and he had he had more touchdowns than Jalen Hurts. He had more touchdowns than Matt Stafford. Like he still can produce for you, so it's like he's a better option to start the season than what's his nuts.
Justin Fields. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with you that Russell Wilson probably would be the better option for now. But the problem is that he's a short-term answer. And if you think Justin Fields might be the longer-term answer, you need to get him a chance and determine
You do, but you also need who's going to learn the offense faster, who's going to be able to who's going to you don't want to throw Justin Fields out there and do what the Bears did. Like you got to almost treat him like a rookie. Yeah. Like give him a half a year, 10 games behind Russ. Let Russ teach him what to do. And then because he hasn't really had that mentorship from anybody. So I don't
know. There were a couple of teams that named their starting quarterback. We got Gardner Minshew as the starter for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not a Raiders fan, so I don't really care. At the same time, for fantasy, I don't. There's a toss-up to me to which one's better.
Minshew's the safe option.
Yeah.
He's going to protect the ball. He
doesn't protect the ball. That's one of his problems, and why he's not a great starter. But he will make more plays.
Yes.
But it's the similar issue as with the Steelers. He's not going to be your long-term future.
No.
So,
but Aiden O'Connell probably isn't the long-term future either.
He's
probably
he's probably not. Yes. But you need to give the young kid a chance.
Agreed.
And which one's going to be better for your fantasy options like Devontae Adams? Oh no. Jaden Daniels was officially named the starter, as if that was ever a question. Also, Bo Nix officially named the starter, as if that should have ever been in question. But Sean Payton's just such a douche. Like, he's just No, not a fan of that guy. So we've got some rookies starting. I don't think they've determined who's starting in New England yet. We'll see
No,
if
I haven't
it's
heard
May or
anything.
Brissett. Brissett's had a pretty bad preseason for what you would have expected out of him, so it's opened the door for May to start from the beginning. I had gone in thinking that Brissett was going to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what actually happens. The Bills, I can't remember if it was this week's or last week's preseason game, had a whole bunch of injuries in that game.
I think they played Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, but I think the injury was, maybe it was.
I think it's a few days ago from when we're recording this.
Yeah, either way, Curtis Samuel has turf toe, which is bad news because that lingers.
Mm-hmm.
And although he may not have been their number one wide receiver, he was definitely going to be a weapon that I think they were going to use a bunch. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had a pretty scary neck injury that he was down on the field for a while, but he ended up walking off on his own power. Mitch Trubisky, who happens to be back with the Bills, in case you didn't know that, he had a knee injury and he's out multiple weeks. And DeMar Hamlin, no fantasy impact, but dude can come back from death, but now he's got a hamstring. So
those hamstrings will always get you.
Yeah. Jamar Chase situation, there's been lots of talk around it. First, Chad Ochocinco said that he didn't believe Jamar Chase was going to play, was not going to step on the field without a new deal. But
what's the penalty for these wide receivers, or anybody for that matter, but specifically the 3 wide receivers, if they choose not to play?
I thought it was $50,000 a day in the preseason. I don't know.
But all they had to do was show up. Like Ayuk isn't getting fined because they called it a walk in. Hold in. There you go.
Hold in instead of a holdout.
Holdout, right.
But I don't know. I don't understand the intricacies of this.
Okay.
But I think they're supposed to get charged something. But I don't know. The amount of money.
Do you see any of is CeeDee Lamb just going to show up the week before and be like next week and be like, hey, throw me the ball?
CeeDee's going to play. I mean, he's on a contract unless he decides to pull Le'Veon Bell. But I thought that their last collective bargaining agreement didn't allow that to happen. It
shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're contracted to play.
At least, the thing is at least CeeDee and Brandon Ayuk are in their 5th year, right? They're playing on their 5th year option. Jamar Chase has only played 3 years.
Yeah.
After 3 years is when you're allowed to negotiate an extension, but I don't think I get that he wants his money, and I get these guys have short careers, and so they need to get all the money they can while they can. But it's okay, sorry, you're not going to get $35 million. You're still going to get $18 million for this year. It's really hard for me to feel too bad for you.
No, I don't feel bad for him at all. It's just
some players coming back to practice after some injuries. Mike Williams is apparently going to start joining Jets drills. That'll be do I think he's going to have much fantasy impact? No, but I think it'll help take a little bit of pressure off Garrett Wilson. Maybe in real life be helpful for the Jets. Justin Herbert returned to practice from his plantar fascia injury. So that's good news. Jahmyr Gibbs is expected to be back to practice and looking like he should be ready for the start of the season, which is very good news for who's considered a top 5 running back right now. And then Jahan Dotson was traded from the Commanders to the Eagles in a rare late preseason interdivision trade. That was kind of surprising. And
what did they get for it?
If I remember correctly, it was Jahan Dotson and a 7th for a 3rd and a 5th, or I think it was Jahan Dotson and 2 7ths for a 3rd and a 5th, something like that. So they're not getting any players back. They're just getting. It's funny because Matthew Berry is a Commanders fan, and last week he was talking about how he wasn't doing well in camp. He hadn't looked good in camp, but he was like, "Oh, the Commanders should trade him, except they don't have enough on the depth chart to be able to do that." Well, I guess they thought they did. So
The only thing I can think of for the Commanders is that they think they have a chance now that they're back on the table with Ayuk.
And I guess maybe I'd be pretty shocked.
Which would be, I mean, that would put the Commanders in a completely different ball game as far as like
that'd be
offensive
huge if
productivity.
they could pull that off. I don't know. This kind of tanks any hopes there might have been for Jahan Dotson, because he's now, there was like, okay, he was a first round rookie, looked pretty good in year one, but now he's behind AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Like, he'll probably have a couple of weeks where he gets, a long bomb touchdown and has a decent fantasy week. So if you're playing best ball,
and they've got Saquon, like he's
and Dallas Goedert.
Yes, he's probably not going to see maybe 4 targets a game. He catches 2 of them for
maybe.
Yeah.
And then one last thing to throw out there. Dude, Trey Lance looked rough when he got to play a full preseason game. I mean, this is not even against starters, and he threw freaking 5 interceptions, man. Did you
see Scott's text message in our group? What was it, Stetson?
He said Stetson Bennett.
Stetson, 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
Trey Lance, hold my beer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Stetson threw a 5th. It just got called back for a penalty, so it didn't count.
That doesn't count.
Yeah,
it was only 4.
I mean, Trey Lance did have a nice long run, which, showed it.
At times he looked good. I watched a little bit of the game. At times he looked really good. But like when he looked bad, it's not just like, oh, it was a little underthrown. Yeah. It was a tipped. It was like, I'm going to throw it to the other team. My receiver's over here. I'm going to throw it over here. Like, it did not look good at all.
Dak just needs to be like, you see, Jerry, you want to deal with that? Or you want to pay me? Like, make up your damn mind, because this is what you're looking at.
You traded for this guy. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, they traded nothing for him, but still. All right. Any other news you want to talk about?
I couldn't find anything. I looked. Nothing.
All right. So let's continue talking about our initial depth chart surprises. Some of these may have shifted since I wrote some of them down because they change week to week. And I was going off the initials, but today we're going to talk NFC. So first one, and by the way, this is just how they showed up on a list I picked, but the Cowboys,
alphabetical order apparently.
Yes, the Cowboys in the NFC East. Zeke is listed as the RB1, which I don't know that that's a real surprise, but I'm still not convinced who's going to get more work, whether it be Zeke or Dowdle, because the Cowboys played like none of their starters in the preseason. So Zeke never played, but Dowdle never did either. So that's to be determined.
They have enough. They had what, 6 or 7 running backs in camp.
Yeah,
they started.
Royce Freeman.
Oh, is that who they started? Who was the other one?
Malik Davis.
Malik Davis. I saw him, and I saw
Tiny Man,
Shorty McShortsters.
Deuce Vaughn.
Deuce Vaughn. There you go.
Maybe like 1.5 Vaughn.
Yeah, he's less than Deuce. Less than Deuce Vaughn. I saw them a lot. And they looked like they're suited for the 3 spot, either one of them. But I don't know if Zeke is going to last the whole season.
I think Zeke is going to be a short yardage back, and I don't know.
We'll see.
Jalen Tolbert is listed as the wide receiver 3 right now.
Yay.
Somebody had to show up as number 3 because, I mean, Brandon Cooks may actually be a sneaky player this year because the Cowboys don't have a ton of offensive options, especially if CD doesn't show up. Cooks could be very valuable at the beginning of the season. And yes, I am the Cooks manager in Dynasty, but in redraft, even if you want to take like your last round pick and throw Cooks on the back of your lineup, like it's worth a shot. I mean,
they can.
They got to throw it somewhere.
Anybody playing Dallas can double team CeeDee.
Yeah,
and they make Zeke beat you and make Cooks beat you. That's basically what it's going to be.
I mean, Cooks is getting older, but he's been a productive wide receiver in the league for a long time. Moving on to the Giants. So the Giants had 19 wide receivers in camp, as they like to do. Their starters were listed as Malik Neighbors, not a surprise. Wan'Dale Robinson, and then the third one was listed as Jalen Hyatt / Darius Slayton. With how bad their offense looks like it could be, I don't know that you want to touch anybody other than Malik Neighbors. But just since they had a bunch of guys out that, on the team, it was interesting to me that Wan'Dale was listed clearly as number 2, and then Hyatt and Slayton sharing number 3 duties. So
yeah, Daniel Jones is just not gonna. I just don't think all of a sudden in what is it, year 4, he's not gonna get injured. He's gonna be able to play the whole season, and he's just gonna be able to just throw the ball.
Did you see that pick 6 he threw against the Falcons?
Yes,
it was horrible.
Yeah, and I get it. He's coming off of injury for the season, and he's trying to get back into game ready and stuff like that. I get it. It's preseason, but he's got to stay healthy. He's the only chance anybody on the offensive side, whether it's a running back or wide receiver, for fantasy reasons, is going to have any type of value is if he can play. And that's your best option?
I don't feel like Drew Lock is that bad of a downgrade if he comes in, though.
It's very comparable. You're not. I just don't see it. It's
not going to get better.
No.
And then at their tight end position, Daniel Bellinger was listed as their starting tight end. This is only interesting because they drafted Theo Johnson, who's kind of an athletic freak. This might be, hey, you're a rookie, but Theo Johnson was listed as the 4th tight end on the initial depth chart. So if you had any hope of him coming in and taking some of the Darren Waller slack, it ain't going to be Theo Johnson right away.
Not right away.
So, Eagles. I literally have no surprises on their depth chart. I mean, on their offensive depth chart, it's pretty clear, right? Hurts, Smith, Brown. Well, I guess the surprise is now they also have Dotson, Goddard, Saquon. We all know what their offense is going to be, and it's probably going to be pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Commanders. Running back, they've got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler both listed as starting running backs, which is just going to tank both of their fantasy values.
Yeah. I think that, like you were saying last week, they're giving the nod to the veteran to put him as a starter. I don't think he's going to be the starter, but he's going to come in.
You're talking about Eckler?
Yeah.
They're both veterans. That's why I was confused.
Oh, well, Eckler is much more veteron than Robinson.
He's old.
Yes. So I feel like that's what they're doing here. Robinson is.
The exciting thing is that
third year. That's not veteran status yet.
Anyways, Brian Robinson, there was some hype before Austin Eckler got there that hey, maybe he can start getting some passes and this could be a 3-down running back because, he always played the 2-down role and he was a great runner, but he never got a chance to catch the ball. With Eckler there, that's not going to happen now. So I don't know how they're going to split it, but either way, I'm not excited to draft either of those guys or have either of them on my team because unless one gets hurt, which I never want to hope for, that's not cool.
Eckler will get hurt he will miss time at some point in time this year.
I mean, Eckler has said
he will miss time.
Eckler has said for years that he didn't want the workload that he was getting, because he is a smaller guy, and he's realistic, but is what it is. At the tight end commission position for the Commanders, Zach Ertz is listed as the starter, and Ben Sinnott was listed as the tight end 3 initially. That being said, I didn't see it. I keep forgetting to go look it up. I heard they're in a preseason game, Sinnott had a catch, and then he just ran over some guys and looked like a man's man. So I need to go look up that video.
The only thing I heard about Sinnott was that he was having trouble creating separation as coming into the league and stuff like that. But it's just a matter of time. Like, I think they believe in the guy.
The interesting thing is this is like almost exactly the same situation with the same person as the Cardinals had last year, right? Like, literally, Zach Ertz was the starter over Trey McBride at the beginning of the season. Yeah. Everyone saw that Trey McBride had, potential, but no, Zach Ertz is the veteran. We're going to start him. And then once they finally let Trey McBride loose, it was great. So you can hope for the same thing for Sinnott in the back half of the season, but who knows?
I don't know what the difference is as far as like where we're getting our information as far as the depth chart, but according to Sleeper, Sinnott is 1 and Ertz is 2.
Like I said, this was the initial depth chart, so maybe it's shifted, but I don't know. And then at wide receiver, initially they had listed Terry McLaurin, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Jahan Dotson as starters. Obviously, Jahan Dotson's not going to be a starter anymore for the Commanders. But I think they're talking about moving Dyami Brown into the starting role. And and I've heard Luke McCaffrey is just too much of a project right now to be considered one of the starters. Now, you got to give him a little bit of credit. I think he's only been playing wide receiver for a year, if I remember correctly, because he was a quarterback and they switched him to wide receiver. So, he's with his family, you should definitely give him a shot. But from what I've heard, it's not looking like he's ready to be an NFL wide receiver yet.
Mm-hmm. So they really have one wide receiver and a bunch of wide receiver threes.
Yeah, I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus has shown a couple things. Actually, it's funny because as we're talking, I just pulled up the depth chart that they show on ESPN, and it shows Luke McCaffrey as the third starting wide receiver, and it shows Zach Ertz over Ben Sinnott. So that's the problem.
Sleeper has Luke as the number 2, and Dyami Brown is the 3.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll see who it is. It's always shifting. All right. Next team, NFC North. The Bears are not currently listing Rome Odunze as a starter. I think I mentioned this when we did this last week, but I will remind again. Different teams like to list starting lineups different way. Some with 3 wide receivers, some with 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, some with a fullback. So you have to take that into account sometimes too. But they're not currently listing Odunze as a starter. He's looked great in preseason, but he's still, I think we all have to assume he's going into the season behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. So
yeah, he's not jumping either of them. No. He will be on the field 60% of the time.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good estimate. And then they listed DeAndre Swift as the starting running back and listed Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson as co-backups. But there's also been all this talk. I don't know if you've seen Velus Jones, who was a wide receiver they drafted a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He's getting a whole bunch of work at running back. And actually, I think he had like 100+ rushing yards in their last preseason games. So looking like a crowded running back room. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. I think Swift still gets the first shot, but I think it's not like he's going to be 80% of the snaps. Moving on to the Lions, Jamison Williams is listed as a starter, so which shouldn't be overly surprising because they lost Josh Reynolds. No, I was just making a comment that it's the new starting wide receiver. I was not going to say anything until you started making faces. But it'll be interesting to see if he's finally gotten mature enough. Yeah. He was a first-round draft pick 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. This is his third season.
This is his third season, yeah.
Yeah. there was high hopes for him. So maybe he's finally put in the work, cleaned up his act, and see what happens. And then the other interesting one at running back, they've got David Montgomery listed as a starter over Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know. Like, the two of them managed to coexist pretty well and both performed last year. The question will just be how much they push Montgomery out more and more for Gibbs, or if they just try and keep Gibbs fresh because he is a smaller guy.
Right. I was just gonna say, is he just listed that way just because Gibbs has been hurt a little bit and he may not play week 1, even though it looks like he might. Like, I don't know. But that offense is starting to look a lot like the Eagles' offense, like where it's got weapons.
If they had one more wide receiver, they'd be pretty scary. But I mean, they got Laporta. I mean, Khalif Raymond is listed as their number 3, who's not bad. But so he'll be a slot, and they've got a pretty good looking offense. So Packers, they've got a whole bunch of wide receivers that lots of people like way down their depth chart, right? But right now they've listed their starters as Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. Dontavian Wicks has been somebody that I've heard lots of analysts talk about, loving the idea of him as a pick in one of your last rounds. But I think he still needs something to happen to one of the guys in front of him. And Bo Melton last year, when he got a chance, also looked very good. So it's real. Even with who they listed as starters, I don't know who the number 1 is. Like, I have hope for Jaden Reed. He had some production, like he had like Debo-like play last year, except he's a lot smaller and can't run through people like Debo.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think that they were trying to find their identity last year, and it was kind of the hot hand, whoever Jordan Love was kind of going with that, and wherever the defense was playing and stuff like that. So I think it's going to start to see who emerges as that number 1 and who can, because they're not just going to be able to spread the field and just every time Green Bay played, it was like, oh, who's that guy that's making the touchdown? Who's that guy? And now it's like, oh, we know who to cover.
The other problem is like, can Christian Watson stay healthy? Right? Like, they claim that they figured out the muscle imbalance with his hamstrings, and that's why he keeps hurting his hamstring. Like, if he can stay healthy, he's fast, he's an alpha wide receiver, but he has not been able to stay on the field. At their running backs, so we knew that Josh Jacobs was going to be the number 1, but AJ Dillon is apparently the solid number 2 over Marshawn Lloyd. There was a lot of excitement for Marshawn Lloyd at the draft, but we got to remember he's a rookie, and like, what we care about in fantasy isn't always the same stuff that an NFL team cares about, pass blocking and stuff like that. So, looking like Dillon will still be number 2 and give you 3 yards a carry if you're lucky.
Not with his stinger that he just got, though.
Oh, did he get hurt? I missed that.
He might be out for. It doesn't look like it's anything serious, but I don't know if you ever got a stinger playing football, but it's this like nerve in your neck area that your arm goes numb. And it's a sting. It stings really bad. Is why they call it a stinger. It's because you get hit a certain way, and it most of the time we got them, and it was just like we could go back and play, but we weren't playing against 300-pound linemen and guys like this. So
I feel like that happens to me on occasion when I sleep wrong. Because I'm that old and sad now.
Yes,
I don't have to get hit by a 300-pound man.
It's a different level.
Yes. And then at the tight end position for the Packers, they're listing Luke Musgrave as the starter over Tucker Kraft. Those were both rookies drafted last year. Musgrave was an earlier pick than Tucker Kraft, and that was what was expected. But Musgrave was hurt last year, and Tucker Kraft came in and looked good. So I was intrigued to see what happens, but yeah. And then the poor Vikings, like, there's no surprises in their depth chart. It's just how many more of their players are going to fall. Like, I mean, it was a big question whether it was going to be JJ or Darnold as the starting quarterback, but now that's not a question. It's Darnold. And I thought that maybe they'd think about signing somebody. The best free agent I could see when I went out there was when I looked was Ryan Tannehill, but that's not a great option. I was chatting with Steve about it, and he was like, "Oh, maybe they can go grab, maybe they can trade for Russell Wilson." And I was like, they could have signed Russ at the beginning, but now they'd have to give up.
Right.
Jordan Addison, I think he'll make it through this season without any legal stuff, so that's good for them. But yeah, they better hope that Kevin O'Connell can fix Darnold, because otherwise that's going to be rough. NFC South, Falcons. I don't think there's any real surprises there. The only vague surprise would be their wide receiver 3, because we knew Drake London was 1. We knew Darnell Mooney was 2. There was apparently a competition between Ray McLeod and Rondale Moore for 3. But Rondale Moore is out for the season, so Ray McLeod it is. Either way, nobody cares about that for fantasy.
No.
Except
that I get to put Rondale Moore on my IR and have an extra spot now.
Yeah, there you go. Why would you even waste an IR spot on him anyways?
Because I have 3.
Okay, fair enough. Panthers. They've listed their starting wide receivers, at least in their initial depth charts, as Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, which we expected. But the third one was Jonathan Mingo, who disappointed a lot of folks last year. So to see him listed as a starter, now it could be because Xavier Legette has some injuries he's battling right now. But I've also just heard positive reports out of camp that Jonathan Mingo is looking much better. So, don't know.
If they have a quarterback that can throw them the ball, like they'll be successful. But I think that's.
Did they get rid of Bryce Young?
No, but
they got Andy Dalton. He's their backup.
If they can put Andy Dalton in as passer and Bryce Young in as everything else, like they might have something there, except for the fact that it's telltale. But I don't know. I mean, the new coach is supposedly a quarterback
whisperer,
wizard, whisperer, whatever you want to call it. So
he fixed Baker and Geno. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, do you want any of those guys on your team, or do you have to wait and then their stock goes up if it happens to be a good thing? Like, I don't know.
Like Adam Thielen's not going to make it through the whole year. He's old. Like for football years, he's super old. He's 34, I think. Deontay Johnson's a good player, but I don't trust it. Maybe as like an ninth round pick as your wide receiver 4, sure. Like maybe. They list 2 tight ends as starters, do the Panthers, Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas. Neither of those guys have any fantasy impact. Jatavion Sanders, once again, rookie drafted. He's listed as a backup. And then at the running back position, we've talked about that Jonathan Brooks is not supposed to be available at the beginning of the season, which was expected. So it leaves Chuba Hubbard as their starter to start the season. Miles Sanders listed as the backup. I think Chuba Hubbard's another one of those players who, like, I know I'm talking redraft, but if you go for a 0 RB strategy in redraft, he's a good target to get you through at least some weeks of the season.
I mean, even in Dynasty, like if you need
you
can get him probably fairly cheap. If you just need someone to get you through a year and you can figure something out next year, like I don't think he's someone that you want. He's not going to last 3 more years. But he's not he's the solid one guy in that thing that is going to need to protect their quarterback by handing the ball off at some point in time. So,
the Saints, They have Chris Olave as their number 1 wide receiver, and then Rashid Shaheed listed as their second, but I think he's battling injury, so not a lot of weapons there. And then at the running back position, it's actually kind of crazy. Jamal Williams is listed as the number 2 running back over Kendre Miller. I've heard bad reports, and Dennis Allen likes to badmouth his players. He's been badmouthing Kendre Miller, which is kind of crazy because there was a lot of hype, but I guess he keeps getting injured, and Dennis Allen doesn't like that, and that's not cool. And then Taysom Hill is not listed on their tight end depth chart. He is listed as their QB4. That being said, he's going to be there. I think we talked on this podcast before about him taking running back snaps. He's going to be one of those players. It's what Taysom Hill always is.
It's a Swiss Army knife.
But he will have some spike weeks, which are great. But more than that, he's just going to kill value of everyone else on their team by vulturing stuff. So, the Buccaneers, they have the only vaguely interesting thing is that they have Trey Palmer listed as their wide receiver 3. We know Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are the starters. It was just a question who's going to be their number 3. Right now, it's listed as Trey Palmer. So maybe the young kid will be moving up the depth chart. All right, so let's move on to the NFC West. Oh, no. Before that, we have some breaking news. I got an alert that, we were just talking about, we weren't sure who was going to be the starter in New England, whether it's going to be Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. Well, it appears that Brissett got injured in tonight's preseason game. I don't know the extent. I don't even know what it is. I'm sorry. I heard it was a shoulder. So maybe Drake May.
That's not good.
Maybe starting this season. So we will see what happens with that. More to come. All right, back to the NFC West. So their starting wide receivers are listed as Marvin Harrison Jr., no big surprise. Michael Wilson is listed as number 2. Greg Dortch is listed as number 3, and that was over Zay Jones and Zach Pascal. But that was even before we found out that Zay Jones is being suspended for 5 games for violating the NFL's conduct policy, which apparently stems from a domestic incident he had back in last November. I don't want to get into it too much, but the way the NFL does some of their suspensions just makes no sense. Like 5 games for domestic issue, like, don't get me wrong, I'm good with that, but like Rashee Rice was going 120 and crashed and hurt people in the process and hasn't gotten any suspension, but Jameson Williams got caught gambling not on football, but at their facility and got like 6 games for it. Like, it's just, they make betting such a big deal and none of the acting like a garbage human things as big of a deal. It's frustrating at times. I try to remember that I'm looking at this for entertainment, not believing in any of these people as human beings, because some of them are quite garbage humans.
They are, but they also get paid a lot of money to not be garbage shoots, and they continue to be garbage shoots. Yeah, I mean, yeah. This is no topic in their time, I guess.
Yeah, just so you know, I said garbage human.
Oh, I heard garbage shoot.
No, garbage humans.
Either one works.
Yeah, valid. Very good point. And then Trey Benson's already listed as their running back 2. I had heard some people wondering, like, Amari DeMarcado, is he going to be the second? The guy who everybody dumped a ton of fab on last year, and then he was absolutely useless. I heard one podcast refer to him as the fab dumpster. I was like, that's good. I like it.
He had hopes.
Yeah, I know, but I dumped a bunch of fab on him.
I want to say I dumped a bunch of fab on him.
I think if I remember correctly, I dumped fab on him and then dropped him, and then you dumped more fab on him.
More fab. However, I still had fab left over at the end of the year, so it's really irrelevant.
Well, and that was the whole reason, like, if anybody paid attention, I started increasing bids last year because all of us kept ending up with like 80 fab at the end of the season. And I was like, screw this. I don't need to like end the season with 80 fab. I'm putting in like 50 fab bids early.
Can we make it a penalty that if you don't use up at least 70% of your fab, that you put another $5 in the pot?
Yeah, sure. Let's put it on the agenda for next year to see what folks think. Moving on to the Rams. They've obviously got Puka and Cooper Kupp as their starting wide receivers, but Demarcus Robinson, who was quietly pretty useful last year, was listed as the number 3, but they've still got Tutu Atwell, and then they got this rookie, I believe, 5th-round pick, Jordan Whittington, who's looked really good in the preseason. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the season if Whittington can start to steal some of Robinson's time. Can Puka and Kupp stay healthy?
What I was gonna say.
Like I've heard that Kupp looks the most healthy right now that he has in a while. He looks like the leader of the team. We know Puka's been battling a knee injury, so who knows?
Yeah.
And then their tight end position is completely not interesting, but they paid Colby Parkinson a bunch of money. And there was some hope that maybe Davis Allen, who I think is a second-year tight end, might get some play. He had a couple of flashes last year, I believe. Higbee's out for a chunk of the season, but it's looking like Parkinson's the starter, so don't look for a lot of production from the tight end position. Parkinson's mostly been a blocker in his career.
Yeah. Running back and wide receiver for the Rams.
What?
I said running back and wide receiver for the Rams.
Who?
Production.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Production.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. 49ers. Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell are currently listed as the co-RB2s. We all know that CMC is obviously getting 80% of the work, assuming he's healthy. But Elijah Mitchell had been the solid backup before. So the fact that Jordan Mason is encroaching and now being called the co-running back 2 says bad things about Elijah Mitchell. So I think I mentioned it on this podcast that I had heard somebody say that the Cowboys should try and trade for Elijah Mitchell. I mean, they need somebody. But
I was just going to say, all these number 2s, like the Cowboys should just start making offers on all your number 2s because that's going to be better than what you have right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Ricky Pearsall, Ricky Pearsall's been injured all preseason, first round pick, but so he's definitely not listed as a starter. The 49ers are one of those teams that only listed 2 starting wide receivers. So they also didn't list Jawan Jennings as a starting wide receiver, but they paid Jawan Jennings decent money this offseason. So and with Pearsall's injury, I'm not hopeful for Pearsall. I had expectations with him coming in that he could be productive in this offense. So unless Ayuk does get traded, which any new news on that yet? It's slowed down. I felt like we were getting something new
The only thing that was new this last week was that Washington was back in talks. Like they were off the table for a while, and now they're back in talks. Like maybe I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Last team in the league, the Seahawks. I have written down here no surprises, but Tyler Lockett has apparently been battling a leg injury, which if it goes on for a while, that may open a door for JSN, who, people were disappointed with JSN last year because we've gotten spoiled over the past couple of years. In the past couple of years, we've had wide receivers come in and produce in year one. Mm-hmm. It used to be that year one for a rookie wide receiver was not good. But, I mean, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb didn't have a great rookie year. But, like, a couple of these guys have come in and made real impact. Oh, Puka. Have made real impacts in year one, which didn't used to be a thing. It used to be generally you were looking at year 2. So everybody was disappointed that JSN didn't come light the world on fire last year, but he also had that, I think it was a broken hand or broken wrist. And then I thought he had a lower body injury too. And like people have just completely forgotten that he was the first wide receiver taken last year. Like he is a very talented player. So maybe that opens the door for him a little bit. But other than that, not a lot of surprise on the Seahawks. Ken Walker's still the starter, Charbonnet's the backup. One thing that could be sneaky sleeper type of territory is that Noah Fant. Noah Fant came into this league with a lot of hype, and I believe he was a first round pick tight end. But they cleared out the rest of the tight end room that was competing with him. They had Will Dissly. They had, who else? Was it Colby Parkinson that they had?
I couldn't tell you.
Either way, they had a couple of people, and now Noah Fant's the clear number one tight end. So there could be some sneaky, interesting value there. So
he's a number one tight end, like in an offense that uses tight ends.
Yeah, I mean,
not as much as the Chiefs, but agreed.
Especially if Tyler Lockett is hurt and they're looking at JSN and Metcalf, maybe then they start using the tight end more, and that could open a door for Noah Fant to get some extra looks as well. So, yeah, that's what I got for things that I thought were interesting coming out of depth charts. So oh God, how far are we? A little over a week, almost a week and a half away from the Chiefs opening up the season. What the Chiefs at Ravens? I think
Chiefs Ravens,
yeah, Thursday night. We're like 10 days away. I'm ready. We're getting if you haven't already, I'm sure folks are starting their drafts coming up. I got like 3 or 4 next weekend. Like, luckily, I wasn't planning on going anywhere for Labor Day because apparently I'm just going to be sitting in front of a computer for a bunch of it. Because that is my life.
I'm still looking to try to get into more leagues.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll see if I can send any more your way.
Anybody out there? I'll. The more, the merrier.
I think I got enough. I think I've got 4 or 5 plus Pick'em, plus that new Let It Ride one we're looking at doing, where you just pick everything before the season.
I haven't decided if I want to do that or not yet. Like, I feel like you just pick. I feel like your best odds are just you pick all the home teams, and your chances of winning are pretty good. But it's like,
this is the part of the reason I don't want to do it is because I'm trying to like be somewhat analytic with it. I went through it all and just like based on gut feel picked a team for every game. But now I'm taking that and looking at what that means. I assume everyone's record is, because if I put the Chiefs at 15-1 and the Bears at 13-3, like I'm just throwing out names, and the Lions, like I think I picked a bunch of times. Like if I have all of them winning, like losing 2 games, it's like odds say that crazy thing happens. I need to adjust this a little bit. So.
But where do you pick that? Where's that one?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be Chiefs on the road. It's not going to be Chiefs at home.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to start getting all analytical and trying to do that for 272 games before the season starts. I shouldn't have.
And we're not even sure what the payout is yet, right?
Yeah, no, like that's the worst part. It's like buy-in's $20.
I'll probably end up getting in. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Well, I'm going to go get ready for my week. Good times, bud.
Cheers.
Cheers, bud. Later.
See ya.